Hey, what's going on, everyone? Justin here at Trumful Reads, and in this video we're going to be examining the shame that I have incurred upon myself for failing to complete a single fantasy series yet this year. Literally, I have not finished a single series, and I have started a grand total of at least 18 different series that I have yet to finish. I haven't finished a single one. I don't even remember the last time I finished a series. It must have been like high school, so, I'm not doing too good in finishing up these trilogies and series, to be honest. So like I said, I've started 18 series this year so far. Some of them I've read just the first book, some I've read like 2 or something, but none of them I've completed, or even completed up to the point that they've been published. But yeah, let's just get started and try and get through all 18 of these series. Alright, I'm just going to go in alphabetical order of the last name of the author. So I have Joe Abercrombie here. He's like one of the authors I had heard about before I even started the channel, just for being like, Lord Grimdark pretty much is his Twitter handle. So, and of course, I'm a noob and I don't go with the First Law trilogy. I went with the Shattered Seas for whatever reason. So I read the first one, Half a King. I actually enjoyed it, but I just haven't picked up the other ones yet. I like this one a lot because it was like a lot of winter survival, which was really cool. And I needed to pick up Half the World and Half a War. Can't remember exactly which one is the second one, but I definitely need to finish this series. I did enjoy this one. Alright, next up, by R.S. Belcher, we have The Six Gun Tarot, and this was the epitome of a weird western with all kinds of crazy stuff going on, basically resurrecting bodies, magic eyeballs, tentacle porn monsters, like I said before, just all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Oh, boys, like I said, I just wanted to try out a western, and I know I kind of enjoyed it. There was a lot of problems, I thought, with the video. And also, I'm going to leave up, if I have reviews done for any of the videos, I'll put them down below. Half a King I have, and Six Gun Tarot I do have as well. I've finished the first 2 books in the Chronicles of the Black Company so far, and the first one is just the Black Company, and the second one is Shadows Linger. This one is really awesome. I really enjoy it. I know some people don't really like it too much because there's not like a ton of world building, I guess, but I love the characterization in these. I just think it's spectacular. And Glenn Cook, I think, is going to put out the 10th and last book in the series. Has been announced, I guess, after like a 10 or 15 year gap. But still, that's really cool. So I definitely need to blast through the next 7 books. So yeah, there's Chronicles of the Black Company. All right, one of my first fantasy reads I did when I started this up was Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames, and Bloody Rose just came out, which is the second book in, I think it's The Band is the series name. And like I said, this was one of the first ones. It's kind of like a comedy fantasy. I have a link to this one as well, and The Black Company. But I don't know how, now that looking back on it, I thought it was okay, or it was pretty good when I first read it, but I didn't really have anything to compare it to. Now I'm not so much. Everyone seems to love it. I guess I'm just not super into comedy pastiches, I guess, but I don't know. We'll see. Okay, next up, was one of my favorite series that I read. It's this weird science fantasy series, and it's the Cold Fire trilogy. And I read the first 2 books, Black Sun Rising and When True Night Falls, and the last one is Crown of Shadows, and I have to finish that one. Gerald Tarrant is literally one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. He's so hard to explain. I literally do just a video just on him because he's so badass and just so awesome and dark and evil, but kind of good, just a little bit. But he's epic. All right, I've read the first book in the Farseer trilogy, Assassin's Apprentice, and this is by Robin Hobb. And pretty much the entire Elderlings Realms trilogies. I think there's 4 of them now. Highly rated by pretty much everyone. I will say Robin Hobb is a tremendous author. Just her writing style is really good. Plus it's cool because it's from the first person point of view, which is really refreshing for a fantasy. And I'm definitely going to continue with that one. One of my more recent ones that I finished was The Wheel of Time #1, The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. And yeah, considering there's 14 and a half books to this really, really, really epic fantasy series, I'm not sure if I'm going to finish all 14. I'm definitely going to at least try out the next one, The Great Hunt. It wasn't the worst book. It wasn't the best. I'm just more nervous about, getting through that many books, I guess. One of my surprise favorites of the year was The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, and this is the first book in the Dandelion Dynasty series. And it's like an Eastern fantasy. Like I said, it's kind of like Romance of the Three Kingdoms because there's tons of characters. But I really enjoy Ken Liu's prose writing style. It's just really unique, and I don't know, I just really love it. And then we have Lies of Locke Lamora, which is probably, I don't know, it's probably up there in my top 3 or top 2 of my favorite fantasy books of the year so far, by Scott Lynch, and it's the first book in the Gentleman Bastards sequence. And I've also read Red Seas Under Red Skies as well. Didn't like it quite as much as this one. And there's one more book so far that's out, the Republic of Thieves. Definitely need to get a hold of that one. But yeah, like I said, this was one of my favorite ones. Just the characters are awesome, especially the relationship between Jean and Locke is just tremendous and is spot on, just really good. Alright, so halfway there. Now I have 2 series by Brian McClellan, because I was a complete noob and read Sins of Empire, the first book in the Gods of Blood and Powder trilogy first. Why? I don't know. I couldn't tell you why I read that one first. And this was also one of my... I think this was the first fantasy book I read this year, if I remember correctly. But this is the first book in the second trilogy. And the first trilogy is the Powder Mage trilogy. And the first book is Promise of Blood. And obviously they're both by Brian McClellan. And it's just really good Flintlock fantasy, which is kind of why I went towards it in the beginning, just because I was looking up different like little subgenres of fantasy, and I was correct in thinking that I'd really, really enjoy this like subgenre. So yeah, I've read the first book in each of the 2 trilogies. Don't ask me why. I'm definitely going to finish both of them. I do think Sins of Empire was a little tighter than Promise of Blood, but that's a good thing, and that means his basically I think it means basically his writing's been improving as he finished this trilogy and then started this one. And the second book in this one is also out, and I think that one is Wrath of Empire, and I need to pick that up. And also, this one's my autograph edition. My wife got me that for Valentine's Day, the first trilogy in autograph form, which is really cool. So yeah, there's those 2. Alright, here's one I'm not sure about. We have The Dark Tide by Dennis McKiernan. I picked up the entire trilogy for like $3 at a used bookstore. And I just got it because I thought the covers were really cool and they all match. But basically, it's heavily based upon Lord of the Rings, to be honest. It's just it is different, but it's got a lot of inspiration from Lord of the Rings and Jared Tolkien. So it is kind of weird. Like I said, like there's hobbits and Tolkien, and in this one there's Warros, where literally almost these same exact things, except these guys like fight more. So I don't know. Like I said, it's just kind of weird in my opinion, but it's not as much of a ripoff as like a lot of people on like Goodreads and stuff will basically slam it with. But I do understand kind of like both. I can see like where both sides so would come down on that one. A really unique fantasy trilogy that I haven't seen anyone else ever talk about is the Riddlemaster of Head, or the Riddlemaster trilogy. The first one being the Riddlemaster of Head, and I've also read Heir of Sea and Fire. And this is by Patricia McKillop, and these were published in the mid to late 70s, I believe. And I really like this one, and Heir of Sea and Fire, because it's kind of interesting. This one is from the perspective of Morgon, the Prince of Head, and the second book is from the perspective of Raederle, who is his fiance, which you find out in like the first like page or 2. So that's not a spoiler. But yeah, you just got to read them, because the magic system, if I call it a magic system, it's more like there's a little bit of magic in this world, and it's kind of vague, but it really works really well, because it's all like abstract sort of mental stuff. And like I said, and obviously from the title, like riddling and just sort of maxims and strictures are sort of just like a part of the fabric of the world. So I think it's really cool, and they're nice and short. So it's just like a nice, clean, refreshing type of read, in my opinion. All right, one of my most recent ones was Return. Well, I read the first book. This is Return of Souls. I listened to the audiobook version of the first book, A Song for No Man's Land, and the trilogy is The Song for No Man's Land trilogy. And basically, I just picked them up because it's World War One fantasy. I have a whole shelf of World War One history books over there. So when I saw a World War One fantasy book, I was like, "Yep, I'm getting that." Pretty much like no matter what. It was really weird. Like I had no idea what was going on. Sometimes like there's so many flashbacks. In the flashbacks, I just didn't get it, I guess. But in the World War One portions, there are some supernatural elements, obviously, for being a fantasy. But the World War One elements were like fairly nihilistic and pretty actually. The characters were slightly tropey, but accurate to like World War One tropes that are accurate, I guess, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's the World War One fantasy. Alright, probably the biggest name I read this year so far was Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings. And if you guys have been following my channel, I pretty much nominated this as my biggest disappointment for the year. So, yeah, I do have Words of Radiance and Oathbringer over there. And I will get to them at some point. But, yeah, I do have like a really long discussion panel video on this one with my friend Tim. And yeah, we just basically blather on about basically differing opinions of The Way of Kings. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing. I understand why people like kind of the grand epicness of it. I just thought, basically my whole maxim with this one is bigger's not always better with fantasy. But I can definitely see why lots of people really enjoy it. But like I said, I've only read the first one, even though I have the other two. Okay, we got what? Three more. Okay. The Grimm Company. When I was a noob, I just picked up the Grimm Company because I thought it'd be like the Black Company, which is probably the shallowest, dumbest reason to pick up a book because it has the same word in the title. You'd think it'd be similar. I don't know. I was just being really dumb. It was kind of like now looking back on it, like I read this pretty early in the year. It's kind of more middle of the road for me. It's fairly grimdark without trying to be like, uber grimdark. So I thought that was kind of cool now looking on it. And it did have some good concepts. I do have the second book somewhere. Yeah, Sword of the North. And it's part of a 3-part trilogy. Oh yeah, obviously trilogies. 3 parts. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to continue on with that one. Probably might as well, at least the next book. But then of course if I read 2 out of the 3, I might as well read the third one. I think. And I just knocked those over. Alright, 2 left. And let's see, everyone, maybe not everyone, tons of people on BookTube love, that read fantasy love The Witcher. And I was like, oh, you gotta, read The Witcher 2. Even though I've never played the games, even though my friend Tim has basically just asked me to play it, like, every day for the past, like, 2 years. Anytime we talk, he's just, like, always playing The Witcher or always wants me to play The Witcher. And I'm like, yeah, I will at some point. But I really couldn't get into this one that much, and it's not that it's basically in a short story format. I actually kind of like the short story format because I read a lot of sword and sorcery pulp fiction. But I don't know. I just don't know if it was for me. I like Geralt, the character, but pretty much all the other side characters I literally didn't care about, like, hardly at all. So yeah, this is, there's 6, 7 more books, because I think Lady of the Lake just came out this year. So yeah, there's still 7 more. They're not like super humongous, but still 7 books. Not sure about this one, or that series. And the last one, I've read the first 2 books in the Shadow campaigns. The first one being The Thousand Names, and the second one being, oh gosh, I call it French Revolution Fantasy. What was it? The Shadow Throne. Yes, and it's part of a 5-part series. And this is one of my favorite ones too. It's Flintlock Fantasy. Now you couldn't tell by the cover on this one, obviously, because he's got like little like cutlasses going on. But it is Flintlock Fantasy. I think it's really good. The characters are really unique. You got lots of things going on, and I'm definitely gonna keep going with this series just because. Well, like I said, I like the characters, but also Flintlock. I don't know. Flintlock Fantasy is just like one of my favorite subgenres of fantasy, and the characters, like I said, are pretty cool. You have like a woman who's disguised as a man throughout the series, basically, so she can fight in the army, since only men can fight in the army in this like kind of like imperial colonial era universe. So yeah, it's really cool. I really enjoyed it. There's lots of there's demons and stuff. Is a big part of the supernatural element of this series. So yeah, there's 18 series that I have not finished, and I've started this year. Like I said, I haven't finished a series. I don't even remember the last series I finished. It was probably like for like a school project or something like so many years ago. So yeah, I don't know. Whatever you guys think about any of these books, leave them in the comments up below. Glad to talk to you about them. Just tell me what your guys' favorites are. I know lots of these are fairly popular. Some are kind of there's a few that I've never seen anyone else talk about, and there's some that only a few people talked about. So yeah, leave what you think down below. I'll be glad to talk to you about them. And also tell me which series you think I should finish first, or some of the ones you think I should basically start like pretty soon and get those ones out of the way first. And yeah, just let me know what you guys think. So there you guys have it. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Go check out the Triumphal Reads website, and whatever you guys are reading, always remember, read victoriously.